I was standing in the corner of my brand new mansion, hidden behind the thick velvet curtains of the grand living room, when I heard her voice. My daughter-in-law's heels clicked against the marble floor as she walked confidently across the space that I had paid for in secret. "This," she said proudly to her family, "is the master suite. It's mine. My mom will take the room next door. Everything else? Well, the kids can figure it out." Her relatives nodded approvingly, peeking around as if they owned the place. I felt my blood boil. My hands tightened on the curtain until my knuckles turned white. She was giving a tour of my mansion. A house I had bought quietly, never telling a soul, not even my own children. They laughed. They pointed. They made plans about where furniture would go. None of them had the slightest clue that the real owner was standing only a few steps away, heart pounding, watching it all. I stayed silent until they left. The moment their car rolled down the driveway, I locked the doors, called the locksmith, and ordered every single lock changed. I also installed cameras in every hallway, in the living room, even by the pool outside. I told myself it was for safety, but the truth was I needed to know the truth. Why was my daughter-in-law pretending this mansion was hers? When I finally watched the first footage, what I saw made me drop my cup of tea, my knees trembling. And that, dear viewers, is where this story begins. But before I take you deeper into what happened, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Grandma Maggie. I'm 72 years old, speaking to you right now from Charleston, South Carolina. I've lived a long life, but trust me when I say this story is one of the strangest and most shocking things that has ever happened to me. Now, before I continue, I'd like you to do me a favor. Please subscribe, like this story, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapters. And tell me, from what part of the country are you watching this from? I love knowing where my listeners are. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. Let me tell you how all of this started. It all began a few months earlier. I had been living quietly in my small old cottage on the edge of Charleston. The cottage was cozy, but it held too many memories, most of them painful. My husband had passed away years ago, and ever since then, my children rarely visited unless they needed something. I had savings, more than they thought, tucked away carefully from the days when my husband and I ran a successful business. People assumed I was just an old lady with a rocking chair and a garden. No one knew the truth, that I had been planning something big. I had always dreamed of living in a grand home by the water, somewhere with wide balconies, golden chandeliers, and rooms so large that my voice would echo when I called out. A place that would finally feel like a reward after all my years of sacrifice. So I did something daring. I met with a real estate agent in secret and bought a mansion. A beautiful sprawling white brick estate on the outskirts of town. I didn't tell my children. I didn't tell my neighbors. No one knew. It was my treasure, my secret escape. The first time I unlocked the doors and stepped inside, I felt like a queen. Marble floors stretched across the hallway, sunlight danced on glass windows, and a staircase curled upward like something out of a movie. "This is mine," I whispered to myself, tears stinging my eyes. For weeks I came and went quietly. Sometimes I'd bring a basket of flowers to place on the windowsills, or I'd sit on the balcony with a book. I felt alive again. But little did I know, someone had discovered my secret. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to check on the house earlier than usual. I unlocked the back gate and slipped inside. That's when I heard laughter. Voices. People. I froze. Slowly, I crept toward the front of the house, staying out of sight. And that's when I saw them, my daughter-in-law, Laura, and her entire family. She walked around as though she owned every inch of the place. "The kitchen will be perfect for our big family dinners," she told her mother. "We'll put a long table here. Oh, and the pool? Wait till you see it." They followed her eagerly, snapping pictures with their phones. I felt sick to my stomach. How had she even gotten inside? Who told her about the mansion? And then she said those words that sliced into me like a knife. "The master suite is mine. My mom will take the room next door." I almost gasped out loud. She was dividing my mansion like it was hers to give away. I stayed hidden until they finally left, their voices fading down the driveway. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind spun in circles. Laura was bold, too bold. I had to protect what was mine. The very next morning, I called a locksmith and had every lock replaced. Then I called a security company and ordered cameras for every corner of the house. The men worked all day, installing tiny black lenses that captured every movement. For safety, I told them. But deep down I knew the truth. I was setting a trap. By evening everything was ready. I sat at home with my tea, logged into the camera system and waited. At first, the screen showed nothing but empty hallways and still furniture. Then around midnight, movement flickered across the screen. It was Laura. She was back. But this time she wasn't alone. And what I saw her do next made my heart almost stop beating. The clock on my mantel struck midnight as I leaned closer to the laptop screen, hardly breathing. There she was, Laura, my daughter-in-law, creeping into the mansion like a thief in the night. Her hair was tied back, and she wore dark clothes as if she didn't want to be noticed. But she wasn't alone. Behind her came a man I didn't recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a cap pulled low over his face. My stomach churned. Who was he? Laura whispered something, and the man followed her into the living room. She flicked on the chandelier. The light spilled across the marble floor, and for a moment, I caught her face clearly on camera. She wasn't nervous. She was smiling. "This is it," she said, running her hand along the staircase rail. "Ours. Ours." The word burned in my ears. The man chuckled. "Nice place. You sure no one knows?" Laura shook her head. "It's empty. Been empty for a while. And when the paperwork clears," she paused, glancing up at the ceiling as if she could already imagine her life here. "When it's mine, no one will question a thing." Paperwork? My jaw dropped. What paperwork was she talking about? I pressed my palms against the desk, trying to steady myself. She was planning something bigger than just pretending to give her family a tour. The two of them walked from room to room, whispering. The man kept pointing at spots on the walls, the corners, the windows. He was studying the house, almost like he was planning a robbery. My heart hammered. Was Laura planning to strip the mansion of its value before I could ever truly enjoy it? And then it got worse. The camera above the kitchen caught her opening a drawer she had brought with her, a folder stuffed with documents. She spread them out on the counter and handed one to the man. "See? As soon as we get this signed, everything changes." He whistled low. "You're smart. Real smart." Laura smiled proudly. I leaned back in my chair, trembling. My own daughter-in-law, plotting with a stranger, talking about documents, pretending the house was hers. But before I could catch my breath, something else happened on the screen. The man put his arm around Laura. She didn't push him away. She leaned in. They kissed. I gasped so loudly I almost dropped the laptop. This wasn't just about my mansion anymore. This was betrayal. Not only against me but against my son, her husband. My blood ran cold as I clutched the edge of my desk, staring at the footage in disbelief. And then suddenly the man pulled out something from his jacket. A key. Laura laughed softly, whispering, "Now it's really ours." I froze. How did he get a key? If I had already changed every single lock. I sat frozen in front of my laptop, my eyes fixed on the man holding the key. My heart beat so hard it felt like it would tear through my chest. How did he get it? I had changed every lock just days ago. No one else had copies except me. Laura laughed and tucked her hair behind her ear. "I told you I could handle this," she whispered. The man smirked. "You're dangerous, Laura." "I like that." Dangerous. The word rang in my ears. This wasn't just a silly mistake or a misunderstanding. Laura was playing a game. A dangerous one. And I was in the middle of it. I wanted to storm out of my chair, grab my phone, and call the police right then. But I didn't. I forced myself to breathe slowly, my hands shaking. I needed more proof. If I acted too soon, Laura could twist the story. She could tell my son, tell the whole family, that I was just a paranoid old woman imagining things. No, I needed to be smart. So I kept watching. The man walked through the kitchen, examining the place like he was measuring it. He pointed toward the cabinets, the windows, even the ceiling. "Perfect," he muttered. "Plenty of space for what we need." What they needed? Laura nodded. "I told you. And once we move in, no one will question it. My mother can stay here, and," she hesitated, her eyes flicking away. Well, Maggie won't be around much longer anyway. I gripped the desk so hard my nails dug into the wood. She was talking about me. No one would question it because she believed I wouldn't be around. Did she mean because of my age? Or was it something darker? I leaned closer to the screen, desperate to hear every word. Your husband? The man asked. What if he finds out? Laura's lips curled into a cruel smile. He's too blind. He believes whatever I tell him. And once this is all signed, he'll thank me for it. He'll think I did it all for us. The man chuckled. Smart. Very smart. They began kissing again and I couldn't watch anymore. My hands were trembling, my throat tight. My son, my sweet boy, had no idea that his wife was not only betraying him but plotting to steal from me. I closed the laptop, but the images were burned into my mind. Laura's smile. The man's key. The folder full of papers. I paced the floor of my small cottage, whispering to myself, Stay calm, Maggie. Stay calm. But calm was impossible. For years I had lived quietly, letting my children take the lead, always stepping aside. But this was different. This was my home, my secret, my dignity. And if I let her win, I would lose everything. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair until dawn, planning, thinking, remembering every detail of what I had seen. By the time the morning sun streamed through my window, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't face this alone. But who could I trust? Not my son, not yet. He loved Laura too much. If I went to him without evidence, he would defend her. Not my neighbors. They didn't even know about the mansion. And certainly not Laura's family. I sipped my tea slowly and an idea came to me. The cameras. They were my weapon. If I could gather enough footage, enough evidence of what Laura and this strange man were doing, then no one could deny the truth. So that's what I did. For the next week I watched the cameras like a hawk. Every night Laura returned. Sometimes with the man, sometimes alone. She brought different papers, made phone calls from inside the mansion, and even moved small boxes into the garage. I noticed something strange. She always came around midnight, always stayed for exactly 2 hours, and always checked the front door as if she expected someone to be watching. But I was smarter than her. One night, the camera above the living room captured something that made my blood run cold. Laura opened one of the boxes she had carried in. Inside were stacks of envelopes, cash. Piles of it. She counted quickly, then sealed the box back up. What was she doing with that kind of money? I leaned so close to the screen. My breath fogged the laptop. My gut told me this wasn't just about the mansion. There was something criminal here. Something bigger than I imagined. And then one night everything changed. Laura arrived earlier than usual. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder as she entered the mansion. The man wasn't with her. She clutched her phone tightly and began pacing the living room. The camera caught every word. No, listen, she hissed. I told you she doesn't know. She thinks she's safe. But once this is over, we'll have the house, the money, and everything else. She won't stand a chance. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. She was talking about me again. She stopped pacing, lowered her voice, and whispered one last thing. If she finds out, we'll get rid of her. My teacup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I stared at the screen, horrified, the words echoing in my head. We'll get rid of her. This wasn't just greed. This was a threat. Laura wasn't just planning to steal my mansion. She was planning to destroy me. The words wouldn't leave my head. We'll get rid of her. I replayed the footage 3 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. Hoping my tired ears had twisted the sentence. But no, it was clear. Laura's lips had formed every syllable. My daughter-in-law, the woman I had welcomed into my family, trusted with my son's happiness, had just spoken about eliminating me as if I were nothing more than an obstacle in her way. For the first time in years I felt old. Truly old. My knees trembled, my hands shook, and my heart fluttered in a way that frightened me. But right behind the fear came anger. A deep, burning anger that spread through my chest like fire. Not me, I whispered to the empty room. You won't get rid of me, Laura. Not so easily. That night, I sat in my chair until dawn again, staring at the glowing laptop screen, thinking of everything I'd seen so far. The kissing, the money, the strange man, the the fake paperwork, and now the threat. The lesson was sinking in hard. Sometimes, the greatest danger doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people closest to you. But what was I supposed to do? I wanted to pick up the phone and call my son. Tell him everything. Show him the footage. But my hand hovered over the receiver, frozen. He adored Laura. He would defend her, dismiss me as paranoid, maybe even accuse me of making up stories because of my age. And if he told her I had cameras? No. That was too risky. Instead, I decided to be patient. If Laura was bold enough to say such dangerous words inside my house, she would eventually make a bigger mistake. And when she did, I would be ready. The next evening, I returned to the mansion in secret. I parked my car down the road, slipped through the back gate, and tiptoed inside. The place smelled faintly of Laura's perfume, a sickly sweet scent that clung to the air. I checked every camera carefully, adjusting the angles, making sure nothing was missed. I even added 2 new ones myself, tiny hidden ones tucked behind vases and picture frames. If Laura thought she could outsmart me, she was wrong. But something strange happened that night. When I returned home and checked the footage, I noticed that one of the cameras, the one in the garage, had gone dark. Just static. I leaned forward, frowning. Had the connection failed? Or had someone found it? I quickly flipped through the rest. Living room, fine.
Kitchen, fine. Upstairs hallway, fine.
But the garage remained nothing but fuzz. My stomach twisted. The garage was where Laura had stored those boxes full of cash. If she had discovered the camera, then she knew someone was watching. She knew someone was onto her. I barely slept, tossing and turning in my bed, my mind racing. By morning, I made a decision. I had to confront her. Not directly, not yet, but in a way that would force her to slip up. So I called her. Laura, I said, keeping my voice calm, sweet even. I'd love it if you and my son came to dinner this week. Just the 3 of us. It's been too long. There was a pause on the line. Then her voice came, smooth as honey. Of course, Maggie. That sounds lovely. But I heard it, that tiny flicker of hesitation she couldn't quite hide. She was nervous. Good. Let her be nervous. I hung up and sat back in my chair, a small smile tugging at my lips. For once I felt like I was the one in control. But that feeling didn't last long. Later that night, when I logged back into the cameras to check the mansion, my blood ran cold. On the screen in the living room, Laura stood with her phone to her ear. Her face was pale, her eyes darting around nervously. And then she said it. Words that froze me to my very core. She invited us to dinner, she whispered. I think she knows. What should we do about her? I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the phone long after the call had ended. Laura's voice echoed in my head. She invited us to dinner. I think she knows. What should we do about her? I rubbed my temples, forcing myself to stay calm. I couldn't let fear control me. I had lived through worse storms in my life, and at 72, I wasn't about to let a manipulative daughter-in-law and her mystery man take everything from me. But her words lingered, like a poison spreading through my veins. She suspected. She was calculating. And now, she was asking someone else what to do about me. I stood up and went to the window, looking out at the Charleston street. The moss-draped oak trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. It was quiet out there, peaceful, almost deceiving. But inside me, a war was raging. I whispered to myself, Maggie, you've got 2 choices. Hide and let her win, or fight back. And I knew exactly which choice I'd make. The next few days were a blur of preparation. I cooked carefully, choosing dishes I knew my son loved. Roast chicken with rosemary, cornbread, mashed potatoes, and a lemon pie for dessert. I wanted the dinner to feel warm, familiar, safe. If I acted too tense, they would notice. I polished the old wooden table, set out my best plates, even placed a vase of fresh flowers in the middle. Everything had to look perfect. But beneath the surface, I was planning something more. I installed a tiny recorder beneath the table. My hands shook as I set it in place, but my resolve stayed firm. If Laura slipped up, if she said even one word that hinted at her plot, I'd have proof. By Thursday evening, I was ready. My heart pounded as I heard the knock at the door. I opened it with a smile. Well, there you are, I exclaimed, hugging my son first. He smelled of cologne and office air. His smile was warm, his eyes soft, just like when he was a boy. Behind him stood Laura. She wore a pale blue dress, her hair curled neatly around her shoulders. Her smile was polite, but her eyes gave her away. They darted around the room, sharp, searching, almost calculating. Come in, I said, leading them to the dining room. Dinner's ready. We sat around the table, the candles flickering softly, the food steaming. First it felt almost normal. My son told me about work, about traffic, about the little things. I laughed at his jokes, sipped my tea, and pretended everything was fine. But Laura was quiet. Too quiet. She picked at her food, smiled when spoken to, but her mind was elsewhere. I could see it in the way she gripped her fork, the way her gaze slid past me whenever our eyes met. I decided to push. So Laura, I said gently, cutting my chicken, what have you been up to lately? You always seem so busy these days. She blinked, then forced a smile. Oh, just family things. Helping my mom, running errands. Nothing exciting. Really? I leaned back in my chair. I thought I saw you near the waterfront last week. That big white brick mansion. Were you around there? For the first time that evening, her hand froze. The fork clattered softly against her plate. My son looked up. What mansion? Laura recovered quickly, laughing lightly. Oh, that? Just passing through. Pretty place, though. She took a long sip of her wine, her eyes flicking toward me with a spark of defiance. I smiled back sweetly, though inside I was boiling. She was lying, and we both knew it. Dinner continued, the tension thick as honey. My son seemed oblivious, talking happily between bites. But Laura and I were locked in a silent battle. Every word layered with hidden meaning. After dessert, when my son excused himself to take a phone call in the hallway, Laura leaned across the table slightly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She said softly. It's dangerous for an old woman to live alone. Things can happen. Accidents. Her words cut through me like a knife. My hands gripped the edge of the table, but I forced my face to remain calm. Oh, I'm tougher than I look, I replied. I always land on my feet. She tilted her head, studying me, as if trying to decide how much I knew. Then she leaned back, sipping the last of her wine, her expression unreadable. When my son returned, the moment was gone. We chatted a little more. Then they said their goodbyes. I hugged him tightly, whispered in his ear that I loved him, and waved as they drove away. But as soon as the door closed, I rushed to the recorder. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The conversation replayed in crackling detail. My son's voice. My own. And then Laura's words crystal clear. It's dangerous for an old woman to live alone. Things can happen. Accidents. There it was. Proof. I sank into my chair, both relieved and terrified. I had evidence now, but evidence of what? A threat, yes, but nothing that would convince the police to act. Not yet. I turned off the recorder and rubbed my face. I needed more. I needed something undeniable. And that's when I decided to take the biggest risk yet. The next night, instead of watching the cameras from home, I drove quietly to the mansion. I parked down the road, heart pounding, and slipped inside. The house was dark, but I knew Laura. She would come. I tucked myself into the shadows of the upstairs hallway, crouched low, barely breathing. Minutes stretched into hours. Midnight passed. My legs ached, my back screamed, but I didn't move. I waited. Finally, around 1 a.m, I heard the faint sound of a door unlocking. Footsteps. Whispering voices. Laura and the man. They entered the mansion, laughing softly, carrying another box. They didn't know I was there, watching from the shadows. But then, something unexpected happened. The man placed the box on the floor, opened it, and pulled out not money, but something far more dangerous. A gun. My breath caught in my throat as I stared from the shadows. The man pulled the gun out of the box with casual ease, like it was just another tool. The metal gleamed under the faint light of the chandelier. Laura's eyes lit up. She reached for it, but he shook his head. Not yet, he said firmly. You can't just wave this around. We need to be smart. My knees shook, and I pressed myself harder against the wall, praying the shadows would hide me. Laura pouted, folding her arms. I'm not stupid. I want to feel it. To know we're ready. The man sighed, then handed it over. The sight of her holding that gun, in my house, in my hallway, made bow rise in my throat. I wanted to scream, to rush at her, to snatch it away. But I stayed still, silent as stone. Laura lifted the weapon slowly, turning it in her hands. Her smile grew. It's heavier than I thought, she whispered. Then she raised it, aimed toward the empty staircase, and pretended to fire. Bang. The man chuckled. Careful. One wrong move and everything falls apart. Laura lowered it and leaned closer to him. Don't worry. Once she's out of the way, this place will be ours. No one will stop us. Out of the way. The words echoed in my ears like church bells. She wasn't bluffing anymore. She had a plan, and she had the weapon to carry it out. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from gasping, my heart racing so fast I thought they might hear it. The man took the gun back, slid it into the box, and snapped it shut. We'll wait for the right time. No mistakes. Understand? Laura nodded, her expression serious now. They picked up the box together and carried it toward the garage. Their footsteps echoed, fading into the distance. I stayed crouched, trembling, until I heard the sound of the garage door closing. Then silence. Only then did I dare to breathe. I knew now that I wasn't just fighting greed. I was fighting survival. As I crept out of the mansion, slipping into the cool night air, one thought burned in my mind. If I didn't act soon, Laura would make sure I never lived to tell this story. And just as I reached my car, I froze. In the reflection of the driver's side window, I saw something move behind me. A shadow. Someone was standing there. I froze, my breath turning to ice in my lungs. In the reflection of my car window, a shadow loomed behind me. Slowly, very slowly, I turned. The figure stepped forward into the moonlight. It wasn't Laura. It wasn't the man with her. It was someone else. A boy, no more than 17, with messy hair, nervous eyes, and a hoodie pulled over his head. He looked startled, like he hadn't expected me to be there. What are you doing here? I whispered, my voice trembling. He shifted uneasily, glancing around as if afraid to be seen. I could ask you the same, ma'am. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then I noticed the small duffel bag slung over his shoulder. It sagged with weight like it was filled with bricks. Or money. My heart lurched. Are you with them? I asked sharply. That woman, Laura, and the man she brings here? The boy's eyes widened. You know about them? Yes, I said, stepping closer, though my knees wobbled beneath me. Tell me, who are you? What's going on in this house? He looked around nervously again, then lowered his voice. I shouldn't even be here. If they catch me, I'm dead. Something in his tone sent a chill crawling down my spine. I folded my arms tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. Listen to me, young man. You're already here, and so am I. If you know something, you need to say it. Now. He hesitated, biting his lip. Finally, he whispered. They're not who you think they are. I frowned. What do you mean? They're not just a couple messing around, he said quickly. That guy? He's not her friend. He's not even from around here. He's dangerous. He's connected. Connected to what? I pressed. The boy shifted again, his bag slipping from his shoulder. It hit the ground with a heavy thud. Guns. Money. All of it. I've been helping move stuff in and out of this place for weeks. I thought it was just storage, but then I overheard them. They're planning something big. Really big. I felt my throat tighten. And Laura? What does she have to do with it? He gave me a haunted look. She's the one who made the deal. The night seemed to tilt around me. My daughter-in-law, a wife, a mother, was mixed up in something criminal. Something that involved guns, cash, and this boy who looked too scared to be lying. Why are you telling me this? I asked softly. His voice cracked. Because I can't keep doing it. I don't want to get killed. And if you're standing here, that means you're in danger too. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stand taller despite the fear gnawing at me. Listen, son. You've done the right thing by telling me. But you need to leave this place. Don't come back. Do you understand? He nodded quickly, stooping to grab his bag. But just as he slung it back over his shoulder, headlights swept across the driveway. I gasped, my blood running cold. The boy's eyes widened in terror. "It's them," he whispered hoarsely. Laura's car rolled up the drive, her sleek black sedan gliding toward the mansion. My pulse hammered so loudly I thought it would burst out of my chest. "Hide!" I hissed, grabbing the boy's arm. We darted behind a cluster of hedges near my car, crouching low as the engine purred closer. Through the leaves I watched as Laura stepped out, followed by the man. She was laughing, tossing her hair, while he carried yet another box in his arms. The boy beside me trembled. "If they see me." "Shua," I whispered, clutching his arm. "Stay still." They walked toward the house, completely unaware that I was crouched just a few yards away, my heart pounding, a terrified boy at my side. As they disappeared inside, the boy let out a shaky breath. "I have to go," he whispered. "Wait." I grabbed his sleeve. "If what you've said is true, I need proof. Something I can take to the police. Do you have anything?" He hesitated, then slowly unzipped his duffel bag. The smell of gun oil hit me instantly. Inside, tucked between rolls of cash, were several black metal magazines, the kind that fed into rifles. I swallowed hard. "Oh my lord." He zipped it shut quickly. "I wasn't supposed to take these. If they find out." "Then they can't find out." I cut him off. "Leave the bag with me. Go. Save yourself." His eyes darted toward the mansion, then back to me. Finally, he shoved the bag into my hands. "Don't tell them I helped you," he begged. "I won't," I promised. And then he ran, disappearing into the night, his footsteps fading fast. I sat there in the shadows, the heavy duffel bag pressing against my lap, my mind reeling. I had proof now. Real proof. But it was dangerous proof. I glanced toward the mansion, where faint laughter and clinking glasses echoed through the open windows. And then, before I could move, Laura's voice rang out clear as a bell. "Wait a minute. Whose car is that outside?" My blood turned to ice. My breath caught the second I heard her voice float out of the mansion window. "Whose car is that outside?" I clutched the duffel bag tighter against my chest, my back pressed so hard against the hedges that the branches scratched my skin. My car. I had parked too close, too exposed. And now Laura had noticed. The sound of footsteps echoed from inside, fast, heavy. Then the front door creaked open. "It's fresh," the man's voice said, low and sharp. "Still warm from the engine." My heart slammed so violently, I thought the leaves around me would shake. Laura's heels clicked against the driveway as she followed him out. "Maybe a neighbor's visiting." "Neighbors don't leave cars sitting in front of a place like this at 1 a.m, he snapped. "Someone's here." I forced myself to stay still, my breath shallow, my fingers gripping the straps of the duffel. My knees ached from crouching, but I dared not move. The man circled my car slowly, shining a flashlight across the windshield, the roof, the plates. I held my breath as the beam passed over the hedges where I crouched. For one terrible second, I thought he'd spotted me. But then Laura spoke. "Stop worrying," she said lightly, though her voice carried a nervous edge. "Maybe it's just Maggie's old car. She probably came by earlier, snooping like she always does." At the sound of my name, my stomach dropped. The man stiffened. "You think she knows?" Laura hesitated. "She's been acting strange. Inviting us to dinner, asking questions about the house. Maybe she suspects." "Then we deal with her," he said coldly. I gripped the bag tighter. They weren't just suspicious anymore. They were planning. Laura sighed. "Not tonight. Too risky. But soon." Their voices faded as they walked back toward the mansion. The front door slammed shut. I stayed crouched another 5 minutes, my muscles screaming, before daring to move. Slowly, carefully, I crept from the hedges and slid into my car. The duffel bag hit the passenger seat with a heavy thud. My hand shook as I turned the key. The engine coughed to life, louder than I wanted. Every nerve in me screamed to drive, to get away, but fear made my foot heavy on the brake. Then, from the mansion window, the curtains shifted. A shadow moved, watching. I slammed the car into gear and pulled away from the driveway, gravel crunching beneath my tires. My heart pounded all the way down the road, the night air rushing against the glass. Only when I reached the safety of my little cottage did I finally breathe again. I killed the engine, leaned my forehead against the steering wheel, and let the tears fall. I had proof in my hands now, money, ammunition, a connection to something darker than I could have imagined. But I also had a target on my back. Laura knew I was onto her. I lifted the duffel bag from the seat and carried it inside, locking every door and window behind me. The weight of it dragged on my arms, but even heavier was the thought circling in my mind. If they realized that I had taken this bag, they would come for me. And as I set it down on my kitchen table and unzipped it one more time, I froze. Because tucked beneath the stacks of cash and magazines was something I hadn't seen before. A photograph. Of me. The photograph lay on top of the cash like a snake hidden in grass. I reached for it with trembling fingers, my heart thudding against my ribs. The paper was creased, slightly worn, as though someone had handled it many times. It was me. Not some old family picture or something pulled from a frame. No, this was recent. Just a week ago. I was walking down the street near my cottage, clutching a grocery bag, completely unaware that someone was watching. I felt the blood drain from my face. My legs went weak, and I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. Someone had been following me, photographing me, tracking my every move. It wasn't just about the mansion anymore. It was about me. Laura hadn't been exaggerating when she said they'd get rid of me. She meant it. She had evidence, a target, and now a plan. I sank into my chair, the photograph fluttering from my fingers onto the table. The duffel bag loomed before me, heavy with cash and ammunition, like a monster daring me to look inside again. But my eyes stayed locked on that photo. They weren't just stealing from me. They weren't just betraying my son. They were preparing to erase me, as if I were nothing more than a loose end in their way. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. No, I whispered into the silence. Not me. Not like this. For the next hour I paced my tiny cottage, whispering plans aloud. I could call the police, but what would I tell them? That I'd spied on my daughter-in-law and found a duffel bag full of incriminating evidence? They'd ask where I got it, how I knew, why I'd been sneaking into the mansion. And if Laura was as clever as I suspected, she would twist the story, claim the bag belonged to me, paint me as a confused old woman meddling in things I didn't understand. No, the police weren't ready yet. I had to get more. I had to know who that man was, why he and Laura were working together, and what exactly they were planning. Only then would anyone believe me. And to do that, I'd have to go back into the lion's den. The next evening, after locking the duffel bag in my closet, I slipped into the mansion again. I moved carefully, sticking to the shadows, every creak of the floorboards setting my nerves on fire. The cameras I'd installed still worked, silently blinking red in the corners. But now they weren't enough. I needed to be inside, close enough to hear the conversations myself. I found a hiding spot in the upstairs linen closet, leaving the door cracked just enough for me to see the hallway. The air smelled of mothballs and old cedar, but I didn't dare move. At exactly midnight, the sound of a car pulling up rattled my bones. Doors slammed. Footsteps echoed. Laura's voice drifted through the house. Hurry. Bring it inside. The man grunted, carrying something heavy. My pulse quickened as their footsteps approached the staircase. From my hiding spot, I saw them pass by. The man's arm strained around a long black case, rectangular, solid, and unmistakably shaped like a weapon case. Laura followed close behind, her face lit with a strange excitement. Once this is all in place, she whispered, no one will stop us. Not Maggie. Not anyone. My blood boiled at the sound of my name. They disappeared into one of the bedrooms, the door clicking shut. I inched forward, pressing my ear against the closet door, straining to hear. At first, only muffled voices. Then a sentence rang clear. The shipment comes Friday. We'll meet them at the docks. After that, we're done here. The docks. A shipment. My stomach twisted. Whatever they were planning wasn't just about me or the mansion. This was bigger. Much bigger. I scribbled the words onto a scrap of paper from my pocket, my hand shaking. Proof. Finally proof. But just as I tucked the note away, the floorboard beneath me creaked. I froze. The voices in the bedroom went silent. A long pause. Then the man's voice, sharp and suspicious. "Did you hear that?" Laura's reply was a whisper. "Someone's here." My chest tightened. My mouth went dry. I pressed myself back into the closet, holding my breath, praying they would dismiss it. But then footsteps. Heavy. Coming closer. I clamped my hand over my mouth, tears burning my eyes. My heart raced so loudly I swore it would give me away. The doorknob rattled. I squeezed my eyes shut, every muscle in my body stiff with terror. And then slowly, the closet door began to creak open. The closet door cracked open an inch. My body went rigid, every nerve screaming. The beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness, sweeping across shelves stacked with towels and blankets. I held my breath, pressing back against the wall, praying the shadows would swallow me. The man's voice was low, dangerous. "Check in here." The light moved closer, brushing past my shoes. My chest burned from holding my breath. I counted the seconds, each one heavier than the last. Then Laura spoke, her voice sharp. "For heaven's sake, it's a linen closet. No one's hiding in there. You're paranoid." The light hovered for one terrifying second longer, then flicked away. The door shut with a dull click. I sagged against the wall, every muscle trembling with relief. But I didn't move. Not yet. I couldn't risk it. From the hallway, I heard Laura laugh softly. "You really think Maggie has the guts to sneak in here? She's too old for games like that." The words cut deep, but I clung to them. Good. Let her underestimate me. Their footsteps retreated down the hall, the bedroom door closing again. I waited. 1 minute. 2. 10. Finally, when silence wrapped the house again, I slipped out of the closet, my legs weak beneath me. I crept back down the stairs, each step an eternity, and slid out the back door into the night. The cool air hit me like a blessing. I didn't stop moving until I was safely inside my cottage again. The locks turned tight. But I couldn't rest. I sat at my kitchen table, the duffel bag on one side, my scribbled note on the other. The shipment was coming Friday. At the docks. That gave me only 3 days. 3 days to decide whether to go to the police, confront Laura myself, or gather even more evidence. The photo of me lay on top of the bag, staring back like an accusation. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. Whoever took this picture had been close, too close. A thought struck me cold and sharp. If they had been watching me this closely, maybe they were still watching. I went to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch. The night stretched quiet across my yard, the moonlight glinting off the fence. At first, nothing. Then movement. A figure stood at the far edge of my property, just beyond the trees. Still. Watching. My stomach dropped. I let the curtain fall back into place, my pulse racing. Whoever they were, they wanted me to know. They wanted me afraid. And it was working. I backed away from the window, my hands shaking, and whispered into the silence. "Lord help me. What have I stepped into?" The house was too quiet now, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. I went to double-check the locks, front door, back door, every window. When I reached the hallway, I froze. Because one of the locks, the back door, was already undone. And I knew without a doubt that I hadn't left it that way. The sight of that unlocked back door turned my blood to ice. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at it. I was certain, absolutely certain, that I had locked it earlier. I always did. I had checked twice before even sitting down at the kitchen table. Which meant only one thing. Someone had been inside. Or worse still was. I forced myself to move slowly, quietly, so that even the floorboards wouldn't betray me. My breath came in shallow gasps, my pulse hammering in my ears. I reached for the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a heavy iron fireplace poker leaning against the wall. My hand gripped it so tightly the metal dug into my palm. The cottage was silent, but silence is the cruelest sound. It lets your mind fill the void with whispers, footsteps, shadows. I moved from room to room, my eyes scanning every corner, every doorway. The living room, empty. The dining nook, empty. But the bedroom door was ajar. And I knew I had left it closed. I lifted the poker higher, my hand trembling. With slow, deliberate steps, I pushed the door open wider. The hinges gave a soft groan. and my heart nearly stopped. The room was dark, the curtains drawn, the air heavy with stillness. Then the faintest sound. A shift of weight. A creak of floorboards. I wasn't alone. Who's there? I forced out, my voice thin but steady. I know someone's in here. You'd better come out. Silence. I swallowed hard, edging further into the room. My knuckles whitened around the poker. Then from the corner near the closet, a low voice whispered, "You shouldn't have taken the bag." My blood ran cold. The voice wasn't Laura's. It wasn't the boy's. It was deep, male, unfamiliar. I raised the poker, my knees nearly buckling. "Who are you? What do you want?" A shadow shifted in the corner, separating itself from the darkness. The man stepped forward slowly, his face half hidden beneath a hood. I couldn't see his eyes, but I felt them drilling into me. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "Now they'll never let you go." Fear clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to speak. "That bag is evidence. And if you think you can scare me into giving it back, you're wrong." He chuckled, low and humorless. "I'm not here to take it. I'm here to warn you." That stunned me into silence. He took another step forward. The floor creaked beneath his boots. "You think Laura's your biggest problem. She's not. The man she's with, he's dangerous in ways you can't imagine. You're playing a game that will get you killed." I swallowed hard, my poker trembling in my grip. "Then why are you here? Why warn me at all?" His shoulders stiffened. "Because I don't want blood on my hands. Not yours. Not anyone's." For a moment, I almost believed him. His voice held something raw, like fear, or maybe regret. But then the front door banged open downstairs, and both of us jumped. Laura's voice carried into the cottage, sharp and angry. "Maggie? You here?" My heart stopped. The hooded man's head snapped toward the sound. He muttered something under his breath, then slipped past me in a blur, diving through the bedroom window. The glass rattled as he disappeared into the night. I staggered back, barely catching my breath before Laura's footsteps echoed up the hall. "Maggie," she called again, her tone sugary sweet now. "We need to talk." I clutched the poker tighter, trying to steady my breathing, forcing myself to look calm. Laura appeared in the doorway, her eyes sweeping the room. For a fraction of a second, I thought she noticed the open window, but she smiled instead. "There you are," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You've been acting strange lately. I thought I'd stop by and check on you." I tried to keep my voice even. "At this hour?" She shrugged lightly, her eyes gleaming. "You know how it is. Sometimes I just can't sleep." The air between us crackled with tension. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the way she studied me, searching for cracks in my armor. I lifted the poker slightly, not enough to threaten, but enough for her to notice. "What do you want, Laura?" Her smile tightened. "Just to make sure we understand each other." She stepped closer, her heels clicking softly on the floor. "Whatever little suspicions you've been entertaining, you need to drop them. For your own good." My pulse thundered, but I forced myself to meet her gaze. "And if I don't?" Her smile vanished. For the first time, I saw the mask slip. Her eyes turned cold, her jaw tight. "Then you won't live to regret it." We stood there in silence, two women locked in a quiet war. Then suddenly, she turned on her heel, her voice drifting back as she left the room. "Get some sleep, Maggie. You'll need it." Her footsteps faded down the hall, the front door clicking shut behind her. I sank onto the bed, the poker slipping from my hands, my whole body shaking. But when I looked toward the window, the curtain still swaying from where the hooded man had escaped, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. And if Laura thought I would give up, she had no idea what kind of fight I had left in me. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't see in that moment, was that as Laura drove away from my cottage, she pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and said in a chillingly calm voice, "It's time. Do it tonight." The words echoed in my mind long after Laura's car disappeared down the road. "It's time. Do it tonight." I didn't know who she was talking to. I didn't know what it was. But I knew deep in my bones that danger was already on its way. I bolted every lock again, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and drew the curtains tight. The cottage felt smaller than ever, its shadows pressing in on me. My chest heaved with every shallow breath. I paced the living room, the poker in my hand again. Each tick of the clock on the wall felt louder, sharper, like a countdown I couldn't stop. Then a sound. A faint scrape against the window. I spun, my heart nearly exploding in my chest. First, nothing. Just the glass reflecting the pale moonlight. Then I saw it. A gloved hand pressing against the window pane. I stumbled back, a cry caught in my throat. The hand lingered for a moment, then disappeared into the dark. My mind raced. Should I call the police? Would they even get here in time? Before I could decide, the power cut out. The lights blinked once. Then the entire house was plunged into blackness. I gasped, gripping the poker so tightly it hurt. The hum of the refrigerator died. The clock fell silent, and all I could hear was my own pulse pounding in my ears. Then, from the back of the cottage, the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. They were inside. I backed toward the stairs, my knees trembling, the darkness swallowing me whole. The duffel bag in the closet flashed in my mind. Was that what they were after? Or was it me? Footsteps crunched over broken glass. Slow. Deliberate. I whispered a prayer under my breath, my tears blurring the shadows. Then a voice, deep and cold, called out from the darkness. "Where are you, Maggie?" The voice slithered through the darkness, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Where are you, Maggie?" My hands shook, but I gripped the poker tighter. I wouldn't go down easy. I crept backward up the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. I winced at the sound, praying the intruder hadn't heard. But then silence. No more footsteps. No more glass crunching. Just silence. That was worse. I reached the landing and pressed myself against the wall, listening so hard my ears rang. The cottage seemed alive with whispers, the creak of wood, the sigh of wind against the windows. Then a floorboard groaned below. He was moving. Slowly. Patiently. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. My eyes darted to the bedroom. If I could reach the closet, maybe I could grab the duffel bag and run. Evidence meant safety. But one wrong move and I'd be trapped. Another sound. This time from the kitchen. I crouched low, creeping toward the bedroom door. My bare feet slid silently over the floorboards. I slipped inside, easing the door shut behind me, the dark pressing heavy around me. I reached for the closet handle, my heart pounding. If I could just... The door burst open. A tall figure filled the frame, a flashlight beam slicing across my face. "There you are," the voice growled. I screamed, swinging the poker with every ounce of strength I had. The metal connected with a sickening thud, and the man grunted, stumbling back. The flashlight clattered to the floor, its beam spinning wildly across the walls. Adrenaline surged through me. I grabbed the duffel bag, slinging it over my shoulder, and bolted past him. He cursed, his footsteps pounding close behind. I flew down the stairs, my chest heaving, the bag heavy against my back. My fingers fumbled with the front door lock, but before I could turn it, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I shrieked, twisting, swinging the poker again. He ducked, the weapon slamming into the wall instead. Plaster cracked, dust raining down. He lunged for me, his grip iron strong. And just as I thought he'd drag me down, headlights flooded the windows. A car screeched into the driveway. The man froze. I gasped, hope surging through me. But then dread followed just as quickly. Because the car that had arrived wasn't the police. It was Laura's. The blinding headlights froze both of us in place. The man's grip on my arm loosened just enough for me to wrench free, stumbling backward, the poker still clutched in my shaking hand. The front door swung open, and Laura's silhouette filled the frame. She looked elegant, calm, as if she had strolled into a dinner party, not a nightmare. "Well, well," she purred, her eyes darting from me to the man. "I see you two have met." My chest heaved. "Laura, what is this? Who is he?" She smiled, stepping inside, her heels clicking softly on the wooden floor. "Let's just say a friend. Someone who helps me keep things in order." The man wiped blood from his temple where I'd struck him. His glare was icy, but he said nothing. Laura tilted her head, her gaze settling on the duffel bag slung over my shoulder. "Ah, you've been busy." I tightened my grip on the strap, refusing to let go. "You think you can steal from me, threaten me, and just walk away? No. This ends tonight." Her laughter was soft but sharp, like glass breaking. Oh, Maggie. Always so dramatic. Do you really think anyone would believe you over me? You're an old woman, confused, paranoid. But me? I'm family.
I'm trusted.
I felt heat rise in my chest, anger mixing with fear. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. I know about the shipment, the docks, the guns, and I have proof. For the first time, Laura's smile faltered, just for a second. Then she composed herself, her eyes narrowing. Hand it over, Maggie. The bag. Now. The man stepped forward, looming, his fists clenched. I backed up toward the stairs, lifting the poker high. Don't come near me. Laura's voice dropped, low and cold. If you walk out of this house with that bag, you won't survive the night. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My pulse thundered in my ears. And then, a sudden crash of glass from the back of the cottage. All three of us spun toward the sound. Laura's face twisted in confusion. What the? Before she could finish, another figure stormed into the room. The boy. The same boy with the nervous eyes and the duffel bag days ago. He was panting, his hoodie pulled tight, his voice breaking as he shouted. Run, Maggie. Run. The boy's shout split the air like thunder. Run, Maggie. Run. I didn't think, I bolted. The duffel bag weighed heavy on my shoulder, the poker still clutched in my hand. Behind me, Laura screamed, and the man roared in rage. The boy grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the shattered back door. This way, he cried. We stumbled into the night, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. My lungs burned as we ran across the yard, gravel biting into my feet, but I didn't dare stop. Behind us, I heard them crashing through the house, their footsteps pounding closer. They won't let us go, the boy panted, fear trembling in his voice. Not unless we stop them. We reached the trees at the edge of my property, the shadows swallowing us. My chest heaved, my legs trembling, but I forced myself to keep going. At last, we ducked behind a thick oak, collapsing against its trunk. I clutched the boy's arm. Why did you come back? You should have stayed away. He shook his head, his eyes wide and desperate. I couldn't. They're planning something bigger than you think. That shipment, it's not just guns. It's enough to arm an army. If they get it, people will die. I thought I could walk away, but I couldn't live with that. His words cut through my fear like a blade. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about stopping something terrible. But before I could respond, Laura's voice rang out from the yard. Maggie, she called, sweet as sugar, though it dripped with venom. You can't hide forever. Hand over the bag and maybe, just maybe, I'll let you live. The boy's eyes darted to me. We need to finish this. We need to bring them down. I looked at him, so young, so scared, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to let Laura win. Not tonight. Not ever. I pulled the scrap of paper from my pocket, the one with Friday docks, shipment scrawled on it. This is our proof, I whispered. But we need more. We need them caught in the act. The boy nodded quickly. Then we wait for Friday. We go to the docks. Together. I swallowed hard, fear twisting in my gut, but also a strange fire. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was planning. Fighting back. From the yard, Laura cursed, her voice sharper now. Find them. The man's heavy footsteps moved into the trees. I squeezed the boy's hand, whispering, quiet now. Stay close. And together, we melted deeper into the shadows, slipping away while Laura and her partner searched in vain. By sunrise, we were gone. We hid the duffel bag in a safe place out of reach. And though fear still clung to me, I knew what I had to do. For years, I had been quiet, polite, the kind of grandmother who baked pies and kept her head down. But that night taught me something. Evil grows in silence. And when it rises in your own home, from people you love, you cannot stay silent. You have to fight. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who could be hurt. So I turned to the boy, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Friday, I said. We bring this to an end. And to everyone listening to my story, my name is Maggie. I'm 72 years old, speaking from North Carolina. Please subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more upcoming stories like this. And tell me, from what part of the country are you watching? Because trust me, This isn't the last you've heard of me. This was just the beginning. Then,